Okay, there we go. All right. Just waiting notification now, sir. Boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have an incredible guest with us tonight, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than student minister Abdul Halim Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Joshua. How are you?
I'm doing phenomenal, sir. I want to thank you on behalf of myself and my family and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast for you taking time out of your busy schedule to come have a conversation with us tonight. The first question we want to know from you, sir, is when was the first time you heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, first, Brother Joshua, before I go there, I just want to thank you. I've heard much about your podcast. And so what you do to help give clarity, to help to be able to share the various schools of people's thoughts and perspective, and the fact that you would ask me, I'm very honored. But I'm very privileged to be able to do that. I don't take it lightly at all. I'm just very, very grateful. Well, you know, I was born in New York City, and at a very young age, my mother and my father separated. I have no memory, no image of my mother and father living together as husband and wife. So they separated. I was very, very young, brother. And my mom took me and my sister to Buffalo. So I was raised in Buffalo, but I would go to New York and stay with my father in the summer. And so, but there were things that I saw that were you asked me when I was first introduced, but it wasn't where some brother brought me a paper or something. There were these images. And so I had a cousin. So my father had this brownstone on 130th Street between Lenox and 5th in Harlem, New York. I was born in Harlem Hospital. And my cousin would come into my father's place and he would say, Assalamu alaikum. And my sister and I would just crack up. We had no idea what he was talking about. He never explained it. He never told us what it meant, but he would just say, Assalamu alaikum. And then, and when you go to Harlem, this is in the 70s, and this is in the late 60s, brother, early 70s. And when you go to Harlem, the stores in Harlem, you would see, brother, virtually every store would be bean pies. And I had no idea what they were. I never heard of a bean pie before. I never bought one because it was not appetizing to me. That was like saying cauliflower pie or broccoli pie. It just didn't sound good to me, right? Then I would see in Harlem all over the place, these like little restaurants called Steak and Take. And I had no idea that these were Muslims. These were the, followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then my aunt, in fact, the sister of that brother, my cousin who would come and say Assalamu alaikum, her name was Martha, and she had an apartment on 116th Street near Lenox Avenue. Well, right on the corner of Lenox and 16th was the mosque. Right? And I remember my sister, my aunt, my cousin, and my dad talking about the mosque, talking about how beautiful it was. And I had this, Brother Joshua, I had this very vague image of the mosque and just the sea of white. I couldn't, it was not distinct. It was very, very vague. But as I get older now, I'm like 99.9% sure of what it was. It was the MGT in their white garment, right? But I couldn't make it out. And so there were these images, these experiences that I had prior. But then the first time when I was, I guess, really exposed and I was conscious that there was this body of wisdom and guidance called the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think the first time is when I read Malcolm X's autobiography. So I'm in college and I'm being now exposed to the first time to the Black experience. And I have a voracious appetite now, brother, to read about what we're going through. So I'm going to the library. I'm getting 3, 4, at one time buying 7 books. Taking out 7 books at one time and just reading anything about us, anything Black. And then there was a brother who was a friend of mine, Now, he wasn't my friend. His brother was my friend, but I knew him. He was like a year older, but he was much more knowledgeable about the Black experience than I was. And he would feed me books. I remember him feeding me Enemies, The Clash of Races, written by Hakeem Arabudi. And I just give me various books. Then he gave me this one book called The Autobiography of Malcolm X. I was blown away, Brother Joshua. I heard Malcolm's name, but I didn't know much about him. And when I read the book, brother, I fell in love with Malcolm. And I left with a very narrow view of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. So I left in love with Malcolm, but I didn't feel the same way about Elijah. I didn't feel the same way about the Nation of Islam. And so I think that was my first formal conscious exposure to the Nation of Islam and the teachings. It wasn't through going to the mosque or something like that, but it came through the autobiography of Malcolm X. That's my first exposure, brother.
Oh, praise to Allah. Yes, sir. And people are showing you love all across the country, brother minister.
Don't listen to them. I pay them money, brother. Don't even listen to them, brother. All those people that showed love, you said, I pay them to do that. So don't even.
Okay. Yes, sir. And can't wait to put this on YouTube tonight. Please let us know what city you all are watching from. Okay. So how did you change? Because that is a lot of people who I've interviewed. Their introduction has been either through the certain generations, the movie, other generations, the book about Malcolm X, or Malcolm X, or either the Spike Lee movie. How did it change? How did you change from the narrow view?
That's an excellent question, brother. So that same brother who introduced the book to me, he was working in Juneteenth in Buffalo. Now, Juneteenth is really, really big in Buffalo, huge celebration. But he was working for the NAACP. And do you know Captain Dennis? Yes, you know him, Captain Dennis out of so he's in Buffalo now because his wife was from Buffalo, and I think she was sick or something to the effect. And so the minister asked Brother Dennis would start, a community here. And so Brother Dennis was going around giving flyers to people. And one of the flyers he gave to this brother, his name was Brother Michael. He gave Brother Michael a flyer. And so Brother Michael brought it back to me. And I remember this flyer. I remember saying Nation of Islam, and I remember this name I never heard of before, and I couldn't pronounce it. It said Farra. I remember that, right? But the rest of it, again, unfamiliar to me, and I couldn't pronounce it. But I remember saying to myself, the Nation of Islam, and I thought, do people believe this stuff still, right? Because I wasn't conscious of it, Brother Joshua. But I think I instinctively thought that everyone was like me. So I'm riding with Malcolm. And as Malcolm is talking about his experience in the nation, I'm with him. I'm in the nation too with him. But then when he found out that Elijah Muhammad was a so-called charlatan, a so-called fraud, well, I'm with him too. And I just assumed everyone else was with him. So I said, people still believe this? Because I thought everyone else was with Malcolm. I thought everyone, brother, I thought no one believed anymore. I thought everyone abandoned the nation when they found out that Elijah was this fraud and so on and so forth. So, but his life in the nation was so compelling to me. It was so, I can't think of a better word. It was so compelling. I said, well, I got to go see about this. And so I went and the rest is history, brother. I never stopped going at that point. I didn't believe immediately. So it wasn't like I said, okay, this is my life, I'm a change, because I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God at all. I didn't care if it was Christian or Muslim or whatever, right? I didn't believe. So there was the issue about religion. That was a barrier for me. It was the issue about, Malcolm and the domestic life of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That was a barrier for me. So there was a series of barriers. And the thing about religion was, brother, again, I'm an atheist. So, and I have a lot of, brother, I'm not the kind of, Brother Joshua, one day you and I will really get a chance to talk, and you'll find out that Brother Halim is not the kind of person you can just say anything to me. I'm not that dude. Sir. I'm not that guy, right? And so Brother Dennis, he's teaching and he's sharing, and I'm like, I like what I heard, but now I got to, this party is really, really nice, brother, but I think it's about to come to an end now because I got some questions for his brother, and I know he can't answer them. but no, but I'm gonna ask them. And so I said, well, brother, what about A, B, and C? And he said, well, brother, D, E, and F. And I said, oh, okay. Well, brother, well, what about G, H, and I? Now you can't handle that one. Well, he said, well, brother, A, K, and L. Oh, and his answers satisfied me, brother. So it wasn't just he just said something, but it satisfied me. So in time, I embraced it. I don't know when it was, brother Joshua. To this day, I have no idea when I got registered, brother, because at a certain point, I just believed, and so they said to me, well, you got to do this now to become what they call a registered believer. I said, oh, okay, I got to do that. Okay, well, I'll do that, but I already believe. And so I started, my first time was in June of 1982. That's when I first started coming to the meetings, when I first met Brother Dennis. But when I became registered, I don't remember that time. I think it was in 83 sometime, I think. But at a certain point, I just believed. So I came in 82, in June of 82. The minister came to the University of Buffalo in September of 1982. Now, at that time, I'm a believer, brother. I believe. I have my brother, you couldn't tell me I wasn't FOI, right? But if you look at me, if I look at myself now, brother, I had a lot of work to do, Brother Joshua, a lot of work.
Yes,
but
yes, sir.
By that time, I believed. At that time, I'm with the minister, brother. So it didn't take too long. I look back and I thought it took a long time, but I look back now, it didn't take too long. I don't know when it was. I can't tell you exactly when, but from June of 82 to September of 82, at some point in between, I became a believer. And at that point, I never stopped.
All praises into a line. Excellent. Go ahead. Okay, so we got a lot of more questions to follow up with you on. For the atheist brothers and sisters who are out there, what was it that changed? What advice would you give to an atheist in 2022 that you can maybe help change their perspective?
Well, what changed it for me, brother? Now, I'm using language now that I didn't have back then, right? So this language I have now is, I've come to understand what was the dynamic that was taking place with me. But what I was rejecting wasn't religion. What I was rejecting was the unnatural elements that our enemies had imposed on religion. And so, what they did was to make religion and science, true religion, true science, they made them, at odds with each other. They made you believe, the way it was taught, that if you were a person who believed in true science, well, it was unacceptable to you, what they taught about religion. So the idea that snakes could talk, the idea that, you could walk on water, right? I mean, they were just the idea that someone built this tower, the Tower of Babel, and that tower goes, so high, and that's why God gave different languages. And when you begin to examine all this, well, brother, it didn't make sense to me. So true religion, at the basis of true religion, foundational, is the reality of cause and effect. Well, that's the true basis of true science at the same time, right? And so they don't conflict with each other. They're married to each other. They are the same thing. So I didn't reject religion. What I rejected was this spookism that they used and put religion as a cover over that. And so what the nation did for me, this invaluable service that it rendered for me, was that I recognized that true religion and true science are one in the same. And so there was no conflict with me embracing them, brother. It was at that point, it was easy to embrace. So for example, one of the things I had a real issue with that I didn't realize was the unnatural way that religion was interpreted. So, so for example, when Jesus changes water into wine, that didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense to me, brother. So, but when I found out, because I was a psychology major in college, and when I found out that religion was written in allegory, was written in simile, it's written in metaphor, that was huge to me. That was like, that was an epiphany for me. That was eye-opening for me, brother. And so when I saw, wow, now it made sense to me. Now I can embrace it, understand it. And then, of course, when the minister, he was huge in that because he would. So I had the Quran. I didn't understand it for a long time. If this brother brought me for Quran, I didn't read it for a long, long time because I didn't understand it. And then when I would hear the minister talk about something in the Bible, something in the Quran, then I would look and I would get them and read them. And I said, oh, and it would just be what it would do for me would be tremendous, brother. So it was a journey. It wasn't an event for me, brother Joshua. It was a journey. And so it was a series of events, the culmination of which was my embracing faith and to recognize that God is real, his way is real, his religion is real. It's not spooky. It's not some mysterious stuff. It's not something that forced me now to compartmentalize. So I've got my everyday mundane experience on the one hand that I live, but now for me to embrace faith, I got to compartmentalize it and believe it in another sphere of activity. So the nation did an invaluable service to me to let me know, no, these aren't two different worlds. They're the same world. They're the same thing. And so now, once I understood that, Brother Joshua, it was easy for me to accept and to embrace.
All praise due to Allah. Excellent teacher, brother minister. My sister Naima says all praise due to Allah. And thank you, everyone who continues to like, share, and subscribe to the People's Podcast. Okay, the second point, which a lot of people stumble over, is the domestic life of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, dealing with Malcolm X and things of that nature. How did you get up after you stumbled over that?
Good, brother. These are wonderful questions you're asking. Right. Well, the Brother Jabril study guides were huge for me. So before the minister came out with his 1986, we would study Brother Jabril study guide. So his on the domestic life was big for me, right? And he would say you had to pass or to master the 33rd and the 66th chapter of the Quran. So that was big. And then when the minister his experience, his study guide number 18 was of course very, very big for me too. But I had, before that came out, I think Brother Jabril was big for me, brother. That was major for me and helping me to really come to grips with it. And then the minister study guide. So when the ministers came out, at that point, I had already known. So I'll share this with you. It's just me and you, nobody else, Brother Joshua. So this is just between you and me, brother. So yes, Brother Jabril, we brought Brother Jabril to Buffalo. And I remember I asked him in such a way that I knew. And so he, I asked him, I wasn't asking, I remember, I forgot exactly what I said, but I asked him, or my comment was such in a way that I just assumed that he assumed I just knew about the minister's domestic life, right? And so then he just responded in a way like I knew, but I didn't really, I had strong suspicion, right, that was the case about the minister, but I didn't know for sure. But then I forgot what he said to me, his response. At that point, he just confirmed what I just believed to be true. And then that because Brother Jabril would talk about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's domestic life. You talk about the minister's domestic life, right? So I wasn't quite sure about his, but at a certain point I said, well, it just makes sense to me. And I said something to Brother Jabril, and his response to me just verified what I at that point suspected, but I was good.
All praise be to Allah. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Well, speaking of the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan, what was it like getting your holy name from him?
It was tremendous honor. It was a surprise to me. He had called me to Chicago about something, a wholly unrelated matter. And so we dealt with that unrelated matter. And then he says to me, I don't remember the exact words, I'm paraphrasing for you, but he said to me, brother, I know about your struggles, and he said, you're going to see why you're going through what you're going through, and you're going to see the ends or the reward of what you're going through. He said, but Allah can't use you right now in the condition that I'm in, right? And then he said that I want you to take the name Abdul Halim Muhammad. Now, I had never heard of Halim ever, brother. And I didn't like Abdul, right? Because it sounded too Arab to me, right?
Mm.
So I wasn't really. So I asked the minister. I said, "What, brother?" I said, "Dear," I called him dear apostle. Me, I call him brother minister. At some point, I call him dear apostle. So I'm not sure if I call him dear apostle or the minister, but I said, "What does it mean?" And he laughed. He said, "It's you." Now, I don't know why he laughed, Brother Joshua, but I think I know why. I can't say 100% why. I think I know why. But I didn't think about it till later, right? So that was the same thing he asked the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked him about his name, if he liked it or something. He said he didn't like it. And he said, rather than saying I didn't like it, he said, well, what does it mean? I did the same thing. I wasn't crazy about it because I never heard of Halim, right? I didn't like Abdul. And so I said, well, what does it mean? And he laughed, right? So I think he saw himself in me at that point, right? But it was sometime in the mid 90s. I think it was 94, 95. But to answer your question, brother, it was a tremendous honor. And I was
Beautiful. All praises to Allah. Bro, Minister, there seems to be like a tapping noise on your side. Do you hear that?
No, it could be me doing something, brother. It's probably me. I'm probably hitting the table or something like that.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay, I just want to make sure so people can hear clearly what you were saying, because I don't want people in the comments to say that. All right. Speaking of that, Brother Minister, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Speaking of 1994, this is the year before the Million Man March. Yeah. What was that like? The spirit like leading up to the Million Man March, and how did it personally impact you?
Oh, absolutely awesome. Well, in hindsight, you see things more in hindsight than you did when you do. Because when we're doing it, we're just doing it, right? And so it was exciting, but we're just doing it. You have your ups and your downs. So I remember one down, if you call it that. He's passed now, may Allah be pleased with him. But there was this big Baptist preacher here, right, in Buffalo, but he was nationally known. And the minister knows him or knew him, and he knew the minister. And so I'm calling him to try to see, can he and some of the other, pastors in Buffalo, particularly the Baptist pastors, would they help? Would they get on board? So I finally reached him, and he said to me, his name was Bennett Smith. We just had this big meeting and, about the Million Man March, and we're not going to support, we're not going to participate, and we're not going to help because our God is not Allah and all this stuff, right? I'm like, brother, I'm stunned. My jaw is dropped and I don't know what to say. And I called the minister, tell him what just happened. But his unshakable conviction, Brother Joshua, that the Million Man March was going to be successful. And that irrespective of who came or didn't come, that Allah would be with us and we would get the victory. That spirit, brother, it was indispensable for me. It was invaluable to me to let me know that we're going to be okay with this, regardless of Pastor Smith and whether they come or don't come. And he was absolutely right. And so I was blessed to be on stage. I saw it. I was also blessed that do you remember? Oh gosh, forget his name, Brother Joshua. He's the director for Boys in the Hood.
John Singleton.
John Singleton. So I was given some instructions to go with him. He wanted to go higher on the Capitol, right? To take this larger panoramic picture. So I'm with him. And so I'm in security as we're going up higher. And I have this beautiful view of the men assembled. It was awesome. I get there at 5 o'clock in the morning. And brother, I don't know how many people there. I'm 50,000, I don't know, right? I know there's a lot of brothers, 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're banging this drum, too black, too strong, too black, too strong. And then the horde, this horde of brothers coming, it just became just overwhelming. Then our drive, because we drove from Buffalo to DC, a whole bunch of us, brother. We took buses and all that stuff. We drove. And so now, there's certain parts, because I drove to DC many, many times, and there's certain places we would go to get gas, to get whatever, right? And brother, when we would stop, Brother Joshua, there would be brothers, man, deep in these places, brother. I mean, normally there'd be nobody there, you know. Well, I mean, a few twos and fews, but brother, not as hordes of black men, right? And white folk, they don't know what the hell's going on, right? And when they're asking us more than once, they're asking us, well, you know, where y'all going to? And we said, we're going to the Million Man March, right? And they're like, yeah, we're glad and, you know, happy. Brother, they scared to death for the Joshua, right? But it was that moment, that leading up to the work that we did, the day of and the day after, brother, that day of, particularly after the minister speaks, right, and finishes up, the FOI were like rock stars, brother. Brother, they were coming up to us left and right. We were rock stars, brother Joshua. Here we are. You know, you could be, you know, high profile minister, or you just came in the ranks yesterday. It didn't make a difference, man. The way they treated us, brother, the peace, the kind of atmosphere was like no other. And so brother, I will never forget it. The impact that it had on me and had on us left an indelible impression on us. It was divine. Brother. It was divine.
Oh, praise be so loud. Beautiful. Yes, sir. Excellent. And thank everyone who continues to watch. And thank you for your transparency and your honesty, Brother Minister. And on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we thank Allah for your sacrifice and the sacrifices of your family, sir. May Allah continue to bless you all. All right, Brother Minister, we have a quick 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. And then we want to come back. I want to follow up with that John Singleton story of the Million Man March. And then we want to ask you more about your journey to Phoenix, Arizona. One second, sir.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Brother Rashad Street Premiere. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of those services. Sister Miriam's ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, and now Spanish book. All three available on Amazon.com. Sister Naima's Stay on Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country, right here in the studios of Atlanta, Georgia. Rock Communications. If you're working on a book and you need copy, editing, project management, content development, or media relations, please reach out to Rock Communications. Student Minister Robert L. Muhammad's Conflict Mediation, squashing the beast throughout the Southwest region. He does a phenomenal job. His wife, Sister Fudia Muhammad's Giving Birth to a God and the Science of Child Rearing. Please make sure you go out and get a copy of her book as well. Fashion Gods, urban streetwear clothing for men and boys. 314-329-6009. He'll keep you dressed in the best of fashion. Brother Kenneth's Bow Tie Maker Extraordinaire. He'll ship you bow ties anywhere across the nation. Taj Hollywood's Chemistry 6 episode, a new television series out on YouTube. He's looking for actors and writers. Make sure you support him. Keep It Hood, helping others overcome depression. Also by Taj Hollywood. Brother Aaron's Elevated Places, stress management, real estate, credit, repair, and restoration. His Respect for Life Center. They do personal wellness, philosophy, emotional, and mental spiritual wellness. 229-344-1474. Dr. Henry Carter's King Henry Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad's COVID-19 Disinfected Cleaning Services, out of Chicago. Student Minister Sharif Muhammad's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, available on AbdulSharif.com. And lastly, Brother Joshua Muhammad's book, Cleopatra, as well as No Father, No Excuse, both available on Amazon.
Thank you very much. And back to our brother Student Minister Abdul Halim Muhammad. And thank you everybody who's watching. My sister Naima says all praises due to Allah, and people continue to like and share. Thank you very much. Okay, so John Singleton, So he's like one of my favorite directors of all time. So was he nice to you? What was that like at the Miriam March?
Brother, everyone was. I mean, brother, the spirit there, Brother Joshua, was just unreal. Right? There was almost 2 million black men that were there, but there were only 2 arrests, brother. 2 arrests. One was a Korean merchant trying to sell hot dogs without license. The other one was this white boy who called in like a bomb threat, something like that, right? But the brothers, brother, the kind of atmosphere. Don't forget, there were brothers from different gangs that were there, who were in conflict with each other. Brother, it was a glimpse of what heaven looked like. So Brother John, we all were in awe of that day. You know what I'm saying? That day was awe-inspiring. I'm on the stage. Now, I remember seeing Will. He hadn't blown up yet. He was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was a little ways down, right? Yeah, brother, everybody, their grandfather was there. Everybody. But if you wasn't there, brother, there was a problem with you. There's almost 2 of us, but it was a Monday, Brother Joshua. This wasn't a Saturday. All these other marches were on Saturdays. So Brother John Singleton, everybody, man, we were in love with black men, in love with ourselves, in love with our minister, in love with our nation. It was just a day that will go down in history, brother. The enemy's done a hell of a job attempting to rob that day. So most of our young people, they don't know anything about it. But it won't be lost. It will be recaptured. And because that day will never be erased, Brother Joshua, never be erased. Like I said, it has left an indelible impression on me. So Brother John was wonderful. Everybody was. Just a beautiful day, brother. Beautiful day.
All praise due to Allah. Yes, sir. Now, Brother Minister, how did your family and friends feel about you accepting the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught by the Honorable Minister?
That was crazy. That was insane, right? But there wasn't so much, but it was more me as I look back. When you first come in, especially I came in 20 going on 21. And the way that we kind of approach people, we just, we're talking to people as if we're talking to people one-on-one, like the minister teaches to the multitude. And you know what I'm saying? That's what we're talking, because we don't have another kind of example of how to engage people, right? So we're teaching to people. We're not talking to them. We're not explaining. So much of that was just my not knowing how to handle it, right? And as I got older and more seasoned in how to approach, then it became better. But I will say this in the beginning, though, my friend, because I'm getting high, I'm drinking, I'm going to the. I wasn't a crazy person. I mean, I wasn't a choir boy, but I didn't live a thug life, right? So, but they knew something was different with me. Especially in the beginning, brother, I'm bringing people like crazy. I guess we call it the mosque. I don't know what you called it, right? But I'm bringing people. I'm saying, listen, I found something. It's changing my life, and the passion, the sincerity was so compelling with them. I brought a lot of my friends. Now, most of them did not stay. Most of them, they came and they left for whatever reason. One of my friends who I did bring, do you know, brother? Abdul Waliullah Muhammad?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brother Hugh, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We went to college together, right? And we lived together. My senior year, we lived together in the same home. But Allah blessed me to bring him to faith, right? And so he was one of those that came and he stayed. He stayed. So most of my friends didn't. But he was one of mine who did, and now I'm so grateful to him. He's one of the minister's giants, pillars in our nation. Minister's big helper. It was a mixed feelings and controversy, brother Joshua. That's what I experienced.
Yes, sir. And I want to be clear. Everyone, please watch the interview I did with Captain Dennis, as well as the interview I did with Minister Abdul Halim. Both of them on People's Podcast channel as well. Praise be to Allah. And see all these interviews connecting. So it's like boom, 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 boom. Absolutely. So first, primary sources, firsthand accounts. I wanted to ask you, sir, in your tenure from New York, Buffalo, New York, now to Phoenix, Have you ever been faced with fear? If so, how have you overcome that fear?
Brother, face with you all the time. All the time.
Mm.
I said we should certainly try something with fear, hunger, loss of property, lies, and fruit. So fear, you're gonna be it's not a question of if, it's when. But when you're confronted with it, you have to face it. You have to confront it. Sometimes I've done a good job. Sometimes I've done less than stellar job, right? But you recognize it for what it is, and you face the difficulty. You face your fears, and when you face it, it goes away. Sometimes it takes years to confront it. And when you do, you say, "Oh my God! I mean, why did I wait so long? It wasn't that bad." But what you've done is you just made things so bad. I remember one time, brother, we were having, I think, some financial difficulty. And I'm just so afraid of what the consequences are going to be. I'm just afraid. And I called the minister, brother, just, man, afraid. And what he did was he sent me this lecture that he did called Fear, Faith, and it's fourth.
Truth.
What's that? Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
We done that lecture like that week before or something. Right?
Mm.
He sent it to me, right? And but the idea about fear, yeah, I'm confronted with things I all the time, Joshua. Right? So the question is, when I put my trust in the Lord's hand and face the fear, I grow. I face the fear, then my character improves. When I don't, there's a consequence. When I don't, then, like the minister said, there's a deterioration of my will and my character, brother. So, it's an ongoing struggle. Hopefully I'm better, but I would be a liar to tell you, brother, that I've mastered it, because I haven't. I'm still, those things I'm still struggling with.
Beautiful. All praise due to Allah. Okay. The next question we have for you, minister, is trials. What has been the greatest trial in your life, and how have you overcome that trial?
Well, the greatest trial. The greatest trial. Brother, I've had so many. I mean, some of them through my own hands. Some of them, I think one of the greatest trials is, this is just one of many. Gosh, you don't got enough time, Joshua. When I came here, when I came to Phoenix, brother, I had done things to alienate my children. I had done things to alienate my friends. I acted in a way that was so unethical. And not maliciously, it was just, brother, just out of my own immaturity, out of my own, just my own lack of development. And so I'm here in Phoenix, I'm by myself. I came all this way, and I don't have my family, I don't have my friends. It was a very lonely period for me, brother. Very lonely. But I created. It was all me. So the Savior asked the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on February 20th, 1934, he said, well, what makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquakes? And then the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, well, the earth is approximately covered under water. Approximately 3/4 of the surface, the sun and the moon having attracting power on our planet, while our planet making the terrific speed of 1,037 1/3 miles once we're on the sun. So I won't go through the whole lesson, but it ends like this. It says, in fact, that all the above is caused by the Son of Man. And so why does Savior tell us this, right? Or ask us this? Well, on the one hand, he's telling us this, let us know that this weather that's lashing America, that's lashing the globe, is not caused by this capricious, arbitrary forces of nature, but they're the result of a knowledgeable, real, angry God who is lashing this country. That's on the one hand. But on the other hand, he's telling us this is because like God makes weather, so do we. Bad weather in our lives is not the result of some spook God, but it's us who made that, right? Decisions that we've made. So we're the creators of the bad weather that we've created, and I did it for me. And so I gave you one example. My God, give me a minute, I can give you a whole bunch of these tremendous trials in my life that I'm the author of. I heard the minister say one time that our condition, life, brother, is the result of the sum total of the decisions that we've made. And that's true for me, brother. That's real for me. So the bad weather that's in my life, I created, brother. And that when I was here in Phoenix before and since. So I don't know if that's the worst, but that was a pretty bad one, brother. That was a pretty bad trial for me. When I lost my post, that was a bad trial. That was a tough trial for me, brother. I had, I had served almost 25 years, but my personal life was in chaos. So I don't know how well I was doing on the post and service and the believers. That left things to be desired too, brother. But my personal life, my life with my children, my life with my then wife, was in tatters, brother. Again, not maliciously, but just out of my ignorance. And so I lost my post, I lost my family, I lost my wife, I lost my marriage, I lost my job. Brother, it felt like I lost everything, right? And it was profoundly, that was a big one. That was a big one for me too, brother. That was a huge one. So I go there, see again, but it was me, my decisions, things that I did, brother Joshua, to place myself in that condition. And so those two kind of stick out for me. If I thought some more, I'm sure some others will come, but I've had my fair share.
Yes, sir. Let's stay right there, Minister, with the losing the post and then the family. How did you, as me being with my father when he lost his post, and my family, we suffered, and that's something that a lot of people don't recover from. How were you able to recover from that?
That's a good, what, brother Joshua? Boy, you ask some good questions, brother. That's why you do what you do, right? I think it was tough at times. I just, as best as I could, just kept my hand in Allah's hand, right? I never had the thought I was going to just leave the mosque, brother. I never thought that. I never thought that I was going to leave Islam, right? I mean, my attendance suffered, right? The quality of my contribution, that all suffered. So the quality of my engagement in my nation, it suffered, but I never was in my mind, there was never anything more attractive to me. I never thought about, leaving this, right? But again, the quality of my engagement, there's no question that it suffered, right? But I just kept my hand in Allah's hand as best I could. I never hung around lost founds. You know what I'm saying? I always stayed around the believers. And I had good friends that were rooted in Islam, like Brother Wali Allah, for example, rooted in Islam, who, if it's up to them, made sure I never got crazy. Made sure I stayed rooted. So we were told in our lessons, brother, we told in our teachings that the originator was an atom of light and life spinning in the darkness. But he made himself from that darkness it was a nothingness, not because it was nothing, but it had no aim, it had no purpose. And he said that our God told us that the God was a black God because he made himself from that material. And I once heard the minister say that's to teach us that we get our coloring from our environment. And so what I did was my environment was among the believers. And so I never left that. I stayed here. As best I could, I kept my hand in that. As I'm thinking to you, brother, another thing that was big for me, brother Joshua, was Dianetics. That was huge for me.
Yes, sir.
That was big. And I was one of the first 155 auditors, because that was the first group of us who became auditors. And so there were the national laborers and the minister who shook our hands. And so when I got to the minister, right, to shake his hand, Brother Joshua, he started crying. I didn't know why. And I embraced him and I kissed his forehead. I gave him the greeting, but I didn't know why. Then later on that same day, he saw me, he called me, and he asked me, He said, brother, do you know why I responded the way I responded? And I said, no, sir. He said, brother, because I saw you come back to life. And so Dianetics played a big part in helping me to come back to, to me and to life. I mean, I'm still not, it would be arrogant for me to say I've arrived. I haven't arrived. That hasn't been the case, brother. But those were huge factors for me, brother, in coming back to my service. But I would say, Brother Joshua, I never felt like I was out of gas, brother. I never did. I never felt like, brother, that I always felt I still had something to offer to my nation. Always. I did. I knew I was going through something. I knew I had my difficulty. I knew my trials, right? I didn't know how it would end. And I'm not saying it ended already. I'm not saying it ended now, right? But I just instinctively knew that I still had a lot to offer my nation, brother. I knew I wasn't ready for retirement. It wasn't even close. Not even close. But I didn't know what form it would take. I didn't know how it would look, but I always knew, brother, I'm still have something to offer to my nation. And so here, I didn't know, but I didn't know if it was going to be in the ministry. I didn't know what capacity, Brother Joshua. I really didn't. I just knew that I was going to help. And so here in Phoenix, there were these forces that came together, and so then the minister asked me if I would serve here, and the fact that he asked, it was his request, what was very, very big. He didn't ask me personally. He asked through the regional minister, Abdul Malik Saij Muhammad. So through him, it was asked, and without hesitation, said yes, of course. Whatever you want me to do, I will have it. And because this is my nation, brother. There's nothing out there, Brother Joshua, nothing has an attraction for me. Nothing out there. I can't see myself going to the church, whether it's the Baptist church, a church of Scientology. Brother, I don't want, there's no other Muslim community that's attractive to me, with all of our flaws, all of our imperfections, the nation of Islam, that's my home. This is it for me, brother. So, brother, I just know that I have a responsibility, an obligation to help the ministry, to help us, to help ourselves. And that's why I'm here.
Beautiful. You're teaching, Brother Minister. We have a few more questions for you, and thank you for your transparency, Brother Minister. And thank you, everybody who's watching and liking and sharing. Okay, so help me understand, Brother Minister. You have a fall. The trial comes with the post. Then you get a call back. You get the call that the minister is asking you to accept. I've been the son. I grew up the child of laborers on both sides, and you said yes with no hesitation. Put it back in the game.
Not even a little bit, bro. Not even a little bit. I didn't. Not even a little bit. Now I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I was scared. No. Yes, I was apprehensive, right? Because I don't want to disappoint the minister. All the mistakes I made yesterday, and so I'm a little apprehensive. I'll make the same mistakes, right? But that, you asked me about fear earlier, so there was a fear that came up. I just confronted, and so I still have fears, right? And they still come up. Things will happen, but the minister said something to me a long time ago. I forgot why. I forgot the context, but I've been telling me this. He said, you should live as if you'll die tomorrow. And you plan as if you live 1,000 years. Right? And so the things, these fears that keep us in prison, that keep us in bondage, right? That keep us from really living. Like I said, I haven't overcome them, brother, but I'm overcoming them. So to the degree that I can face my fears, challenge them, and be free for real. Because when we're really free of fear, brother, now we're free. We're free. I'm not there yet, brother Joshua, but I'm becoming more and more free as time goes on. So to answer your question, yeah, getting the post, it presented a challenge for me, but I didn't hesitate.
Oh, praise be to Allah. Okay, yes, sir. So you are father of 6 children.
6 of them.
And you said things may have not always been like the Huxtable picture perfect, like the Cosby. Yes, sir.
It was not Huxtable, brother.
Yes, sir. Okay, so but none of, most people really aren't behind closed doors anyway. But how were you able to go back and fight for the children?
Well, I'm still. Some we're still working on, right? Some, that between myself, my children, and their dad, we got some work to do, right? Some, by the grace of Allah, that we've made tremendous progress, right? But there was a time, brother, when virtually all of my children, I was estranged from them. There was one example I can remember. My daughter, there was a brother in the mosque, he's in Buffalo. Now he's got my daughter's phone, my cell number. I don't have it. I asked him, could you ask my daughter, could you ask her if she could give you my number to give to me? And she told him no. That cut, brother, that was so painful for me, right? Now, I never did anything malicious to my children. But I caused them tremendous pain. And so my ignorance, the way that I, handle my post, my lack of communication with them, with my ex now wife, brother, it just caused a lot of problems in my family, brother. So, we still got work to do, right? And it's degrees, some more than others with my children. But I do believe in the end, though, Brother Joshua, that Allah will bless the kind of reconciliation with my family that I'm looking for, right? And so it's a work in progress. But as long as I'm still alive, brother, I'm going to work. My children mean the world to me. And
beautiful, Minister, beautiful.
Praise be to Allah.
All praise to Allah, and we're rooting for you, and we're sending positive energy your way, sir. The nation of that dynamic of the preachers and the ministers and children and labor, that's a family thing that we were all working on. So we're rooting for you, sir. We're trying to figure it out. Everybody's trying to figure it out. It's not just you.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your prayers mean much to me, brother. Prayers of the righteous availeth much. Thank you, brother.
Right. Yes, sir. I wanted to ask you your greatest joy in life.
Oh my gosh, my greatest joy. I had so many, brother. I think one of my greatest joys, oh my gosh, the birth of my children. Joy. I was there in the hospital with my sons, my children. Those were tremendous joys. When I'm thinking of another one, this is a huge joy. The one I can't share with that was a bad thing. The timing isn't right. One day I will share. One day you ask me to come back. Ask me a question. Yes, I hope I can tell you that joy. The timing just isn't good to share. But another tremendous joy that I had, brother, was me and the minister. He invites me to the farm. I was going through some challenges to bring me to the farm, and so just he and I, just driving back to Chicago. So he's driving this black Hummer, right? And minister speeding, brother. I'm thinking about. I'm looking at the speedometer, right? I'm a little concerned that they're gonna pull him over for speeding, right? But that was a tremendous joy for me, brother. So those moments with me and the minister, and I got a chance to be with them, those were tremendous experiences. Today was a tremendous joy, brother. I don't know if it's the most, but today was tremendous joy. Brother Abdul Malik Saeed Muhammad, our regional minister, was here for 4 days. We had janaza, and for one of our sisters whose son passed, and so at the mosque, brother, was unreal. The spirit was so high, and brother, today was a wonderful day to be with my believing family. Brother, I was in the nation for 30 something years in Buffalo, right? And brother, that family is special to me. I love my Buffalo family, brother Joshua. I love my Buffalo family. I do. But brother Joshua, I love my Phoenix family.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Brother Joshua, we're all crazy now, brother. We're all crazy. And I'm number one crazy, brother.
Yes,
but
sir.
Joshua,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna share another thing just between you and I. Don't tell nobody else, right?
Yes, sir.
I looked up in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. I looked up crazy, right? We have about like 7 or 8 different senses to what crazy means. You know, one of them blew me away when I saw it, brother Joshua, was Abdul Halim Muhammad, right? And my picture is there, right? Brother, I am the definition of crazy, brother Joshua. So crazy, no crazy. I love my crazy Buffalo family. I love my crazy Phoenix family. We're all crazy, brother. But I love my believing family, brother. I do. I love them, brother.
Oh, praise be to yes, sir. Well, brother Minister, you have so many stories with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. How did y'all become so close?
You know what? I would communicate with him all the time. I would write, I would call, I would go whenever he would travel someplace, I'd go travel with him, you know, to be there. And so I just developed this relation. And to be honest with you, brother Josh, I thought all the ministers did that. I did. I thought we all did. I thought we were supposed to do that with. I found that a lot did not, right? But I just would, so if I had a problem, I would call him. I would write him. If I was going through something. So remember that time I told you he brought me to the farm? Brother, I wrote him a 24-page letter in pain. Yeah, so he asked me about my trial. I was in pain, Brother Joshua. And his executive assistant, Sister Amina, right? Her predecessor, Sister Sophia, I remember her calling me, and she wasn't trying to be funny. She was being dead serious. She said, but I was kind of funny to me. She said, Brother Halim, the minister's on page 6 of your letter. But it's 24-page letter I wrote. And the believers who know me, right, both, my friends, my family, those who know me, they know, brother, if I write a letter to the minister, right, it's less than 10 pages, it's a short letter. When I write them, I write things that's on my mind, right? And so I talked to him, I don't know, maybe about a month ago, about almost 2 months. God, time goes so fast. About 2 months ago, I talked to him. And he told me something then. He told me a few years ago. He said, brother, I love to read your letters. Right? And so, I just write what I write. And so to communicate with him, and Brother Joshua, though, I will say this, that Brother Dennis, I owe a debt of gratitude to him. Because one thing, and every once in a while I'll call Brother Dennis and I'll thank him for this. I say, Brother Dennis, as I get older, I appreciate you more and more. Because Brother Dennis was never selfish with the minister, brother. I thought the way he treated us with the minister, but he shared the minister with us. And I thought that's what you do. It was only later that I realized that was not the case, brother.
That's a fact.
Selfish with the minister, brother. They try to block him. They don't want no one else to have him. That was not the minister, brother. And so, Brother Dennis, that was not him. And so he shared him with us. And so that gesture on Brother Dennis's part was a major player for me in my development, my relationship with the minister. I'm eternally grateful for Brother Dennis, right? And the minister he would never, he never discouraged it. He always encouraged it. He always encouraged it, this relationship. And so I think that's how, brother. I just reached out for him. And so the Bible says you take one step toward God, he takes 2 toward you. So I would walk toward him, brother, and he would then come to me, and I'm eternally grateful, brother.
Oh, praise due to a lot. Okay, wonderful. So we have 2 more questions for you, Minister. People showing you love. And inshallah, we definitely want to bring you back for part 2 so that in the future you can with the
You don't
greatest
want
joy.
you talking that talk, Brother Joshua. You don't want to bring that. You're just talking that talk.
Yes, sir. Because you said you got a secret greatest joy. We got to hear about it in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What type of music do you listen to, bro, Minister?
Right now, I'm in the cool jazz. I love music, period, right? I'm a little old school. Like some of the recent stuff, I don't know too much about Joshua, right? But 60s, 70s, 80s in particular, right? Motown, old school R&B. I love that, right? I love some of my on my Spotify playlist. I've got, I see you got Eminem back there, so he's on my playlist. Wait, he's on my. I got it's my. I don't know a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot of Eminem, but I got one of my playlists is called what's it called? Vanilla Jams, right? Eminem is on my. He's on my Vanilla Jams. What's the one? One he does with Dre.
Yes, sir.
What's the name of that one? This is Dre, but it's
forget about Dre, maybe.
Okay, but I forgot that, and I see you got Queen there, so I got some Queen on my Spotify. So I've got a variety. I see over there MC Hammer, so can't touch that. That's one of my playlists on my.
Okay.
Of course, I see Whitney over there. I don't got Jimi Hendrix. I see Jimi Hendrix you got there. I don't have any Jimi Hendrix, right? But I love music, brother. But right now, I've been listening to a lot of smooth jazz, and that's been my everything from Fleetwood Mac to Stevie Wonder to I love Elton John. I love just good music, brother.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Minister, our last question that we want to know from you, sir, is for part 1 of the interview is, what would you like your legacy to be, sir?
Wow. You know what? That's a wonderful question, brother. You know what, Abdul? You know your father's Abdul. You know what Abdul means?
Yes. No, sir.
You know what Abdul means?
No, sir. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Abdul means servant. And I hope that I can live up to that name. When the minister gave me, I remember when the minister gave me that name, I called the his office. For some reason I forgot. And the secretary, because my given name was Donald, right? She called me Brother Donald. I said, "Oh no, the minister gave me a name." And she said, I said, "Abdul Halim." She said, "Abdul. I had no idea what she was talking about, right? I mean, none, right? And then, all right, so that was that. And then one day the minister was upset with us, the laborers, and he was threatening to take away our names. And he said, "And to my top laborers, I gave you the name Abdul." Right? I said, "Wow, that kind of blew me away. I had no idea. I never used Abdul, never, right? I just went never. I mean, and then one day we're at the palace, and I don't know why he's talking about this, but the minister he says that the Savior told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said, "Brother, why don't you get the big name?" And then the Honorable Elijah was telling this. I guess he's telling the minister that, if I had known what that name meant, I would have that name. I thought it was Kareem because I heard the idea about the big name. I thought it was Kareem because he was Elijah Kareem before he was Elijah Muhammad, right? So I thought it was Kareem. But the minister said that big name was Abdul. Big name. Brother Joshua, he talked about that for about 45 minutes, half an hour. And so I was like, brother, I at that point, now in the nation, when I introduce myself to the nation, I'll say Halim, because everyone knows me, Halim. But outside the nation, if they if someone meets me now, I'll introduce myself as Abdul, right? You don't know who Halim is. I just say Abdul, right? Remember the minister talking, that same time he's talking about Abdul, he told Brother Akbar, he said, Brother Akbar was there. He said, Brother Akbar, see, he signed his name Akbar Muhammad. I did the same thing. I didn't like Abdul. I didn't. So I didn't like it, right? But now, brother, I love Abdul. And I embrace it, brother, Abdul. So this name that he gave. And then I found out that Brother Jamil told me this. I didn't know it. Do you know, are you familiar with Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life? You remember that album? Do you know
Of
that?
course.
It's a little before your time now, brother.
Yes, sir. It's before my time, but I'm up on it.
Okay, right. So do you ever read the dedication to that? He dedicates that to a whole lot of people, brother. One day you should read it. A lot of people. One of the people he dedicates that album to is Abdul Halim Farrakhan. What was the minister's name? Right? And so now I think the Imam gave him that name. I think. I don't know if he took that name or Imam Muhammad gave him that name. But at one time, it was Abdul Halim Farrakhan, right? So this name is, for me, it's just a tremendous honor for me. And I hope to, once you ask me what kind of legacy do I want to leave with, I hope that one that people see me as a servant. Right? That's one that can live up. And I hope that one day, Brother Joshua, that when I call you or I call anyone else and they see my name on their caller ID, I hope that they break out into a spontaneous, a spontaneous smile. And they see my name. I mean, that it's not like, what does this dude want? Why is he calling me? Right? Not like that, right? But when they see my name, that they smile. And they smile because I was a servant. They smile because I was a brother. They smile because I left them in a better place than I found it. If I can do that, Brother Joshua, I'd be all right.
Excellent. You've been teaching all day, bro, man. You've been teaching good. This is some amazing information as well as inspiration. People all across the country, thank you all for liking and sharing. I can't wait to put this on YouTube tonight. This is part one, Brother Student Minister Abdul Halim Muhammad's interview. I want to thank you, sir. And inshallah, we want to bring you back for a part two as soon as possible. Because we have a lot of follow-up questions, but we don't want to hold you to, this evening. But I want to thank you again on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast for taking time out of your busy schedule. And I look forward to meeting you in person too, so I can pick your brain about
we'll be in Chicago, right? We'll be in Chicago?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll see you there, Brother Joshua. But Joshua, I want to thank you, brother. I want to thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for bringing your brother on. And I hope and pray to our Savior that I said something that enhances what you do, this great work that you do. It didn't detract. I hope that I was an asset to you and not liability.
Beautiful, sir. Well, this is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.